Cati Glidewell, the blonde in front. This is the first time that you are joining. Hey, and joining us on Kicking the Seat, and it's a pleasure to have you. I'm really kind of thrilled that we've kind of, I think, seen each other, known each other around for a couple of years now, but we haven't really gotten to hang out and talk movies in depth. So I'm glad this is finally happening about one of my favorite films of 2023, Talk to Me. And we're going to talk all about it. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ian, and I want to say it is a pleasure to be on on Kicking Seat. I know we've known each other or been around with messages and each other for a number of years. So I think this is going to be fun. And I too think Talk to Me is one of the best films of the year. It is my favorite horror film of the year. And it is, yeah, I think this is the film that when they talk about hyping up horror, this is the one that should get all the hype right now.
It is, and it's opening, we're recording this a little bit early, but it's releasing on opening day. So people can run around and see it. We are going to talk some spoilers here, so just fair warning. But yeah, we got to see it. You saw it. This is the second time you've seen it, right? We saw it together a couple weeks ago now at the Music Box Theater, a very special screening. It was actually the day that the SAG-AFTRA strike was announced, and the walkouts happened. But the co-directors, Danny and Michael Philippou, were actually there for a post-screening Q&A. So that was kind of a treat. I have a feeling we're going to be seeing less and less of those in the weeks and months ahead. Hopefully this stuff gets resolved so we can get back to business as usual for many different reasons. But it was a really cool experience to see this film and to listen to the people who made it talk about it and what it meant to them and what they were trying to accomplish. So why don't you tee this up for us? What is Talk to Me about, and what was your reaction the first time you saw it and then the second time that you saw it? Was there any kind of a difference?
So, Talk to Me is about a group of friends who get together kind of on a dare, or it's one of those things, this generation of kids with their cell phones like to get together and tape every all their friends getting scared or spooked out. So these couple kids have this embalmed hand. You do this little magic little thing and you see a ghost and you say, talk to me. You grab the hand, you say, talk to me. You see this ghost and then you say, let me in. And the ghost embodies you. And you can only have it for 90 seconds now, 90 seconds to stay safe. And then everyone videos it and stuff. And someone takes it a little too far and many mishaps happen. One of the things when I saw it the first time, it's not even immediately, the beginning of the film, I just think that's the thing that really was like, oh man, this is the real deal. Like the beginning of the film is like a what 3-4 minute long cut that I didn't even realize until like I'm like a minute and a half, 2 minutes in. I'm like, oh, they haven't cut away yet. It's like, oh, well, this is very okay. This is not little like maybe I didn't know what this film was going to be like. And then you have the first death of the film that just kicks you in the freaking gut. Like that was beautifully done. And right there, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm all in for this, like big time. One of the things I thought Sophie Wilde, who plays Mia, I thought her performance was absolutely just, I mean, it was just palpable. Like you just can't take your eyes off her anytime she's on the screen. Seeing it the second time, I was like, I am huge fan. Cannot wait to see what else she has to do. And this is her feature film screen debut. So I know, right? It's like she's amazing. And the actor, sorry, I wrote these down. Joe Bird, who plays Riley, also his feature film screen debut. One of the things that seeing it the second time that I loved about it the first time too is the fact that everyone is just so natural. Like
Yes.
this doesn't, they don't put on these airs, they don't overact, they don't do these whole huge dramatic things and it's like, I'm acting and this is emotion, these are emotions that I'm feeling. It's like it's just natural. I mean, down to what they're wearing. It's like I love that the costume department didn't try and overdress them. It's like sweatpants and sweatshirts and nothing fancy. And I think a lot of the what was the what elevated that is the fact that, I mean, a lot of the people in the film, I think this is like one of their first things they're doing. And good, keep it up, keep doing what you're doing, don't overdo it, because you are everything about this was amazing. The one thing, and I think we discussed this before the film, first time I saw this, that blew me away, the practical effects. Many films, especially with like a bigger budget, which this didn't have a bigger budget, even though it is A24, that was sold to A24. A24 bought it like after it was made. But the thing that really like hit me, that I'm like, done, I am in, the practical effects of this film are probably the best of 2023. They are amazing. Minimal CGI used in just a few scenes, like with the eyes. Otherwise, it is full practical effects, like head to toe on a number of characters. And another thing is that this is a film that they may have like a one nod to like Event Horizon, when it's not even that so much that, I think the scene I'm talking about. But this is, I felt like a very original like script and idea, and I think the execution was amazing. I also love the fact that, and I said this to the directors, I love the fact that they didn't do the stereotypical Australian thing in horror films, much like horror films in America do, where in America, the dog dies. In Australia, something else dies. They didn't do that. And like last year, I know there was at least 3 Australian horror films that did it, and I actually complimented them on that, because I feel like that's a trope. It's overdone, all that stuff. But they are a delight. You were at the Q&A. You know what they were like, what the directors, Danny and Michael, were. I hope they do more things, because they were just a joy. I love that they nerded out to film. They're geeks like us. They are talking about people who have complimented them on the film, and they are just so giddy. And it's like, keep that, guys, keep it. And I read in IMDb that they wanted Talk to Me to be their feature film debut. Like they had actually been offered like a DCEU film, and they wanted Talk to Me. I know. And they wanted Talk to Me to be their feature film debut. And way to go. I feel like, I don't know, the way they handle this and their craft and stuff, it gives me that like Justin Benson, Aaron Moorhead kind of collaboration that they do, even though Danny and Michael are brothers. So I'm just really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do next after this.
I am too. It's weird. I've been thinking about this movie a lot. And you said that, there's a little Event Horizon in there. I think there's a lot of Nightmare Elm Street in here. But the thing is, and I'm still, even though I've been thinking about this a lot, I still have had trouble kind of articulating my feelings about it. So we're talking on a podcast here, so I'm going to work this out with you. When a lot of directors who are, who came of age after the era that they are trying to pay homage to, there's almost like this kind of thing, like, well, they weren't really there. It feels like they're getting almost like Xeroxed impressions of what that era was like and what everybody appreciates about it. I'm not a big fan of Stranger Things, mostly because I watched the first season and I was like, yeah, not every kid in 1982 had like all of the posters and all of the memorabilia from the big hit movies of that time, because they were mostly like in and out of the theaters, right? Those are more bedrooms of like 45-year-old, fans of those movies now.
Yes.
But these guys, I feel like, watched a lot of horror movies and drew the right lessons from them. And in putting together their own film, you can see all the ingredients, but they've kind of come up with a new flavor for the souffle. The reason I bring up Nightmare on Elm Street is thinking about what the characters go through in this movie. I think there's a very distinct cutoff point where reality just kind of melts away, and we have to question everything that our main character Mia sees and says and does. Even though there are these kind of like little tricks and double backs of like, oh, she's not really seeing this character, or this is not really this character talking to her, it's somebody else. I think you have to step back and say, well, none of this is real.
Yeah.
She's being played for a fool, which is kind of a tragedy because she is a good, a good person, a good character. She just makes a series of emotionally driven bad mistakes that I think are understandable to anybody in the audience. She had a mother who died tragically under mysterious circumstances, and when given the opportunity to speak with the dead, one of the spirits that passes through this hand, she believes, is her mother. And in talking to her, that's one of the things that I believe steps over the boundaries of that 90 seconds, thus letting different, things into our world that shouldn't be here and setting off a tragic series of events. But you know, it's very few people take that lesson from Nightmare on Elm Street. Usually it's like, oh, it's a killer in your dreams, or, we're just going to have like a bunch of graphic violence and teen sex and all that. But just the idea of melding, reality and fantasy together in a way that's very unique. I think that's a great, a great angle to take a movie like this. Also, the hand, this is, if you look at it, this is pretty much just another Ouija board movie, but
Yeah.
you've got this new mechanic it's odd to look at. They never explain what all the writing is all over the hand. When I first saw that on the poster, there's all these names and things etched into them, like, oh, maybe those are the souls of the people that it's claimed. But I think really it's just a bunch of teenagers passing this hand around for years. They've drawn it like almost like a cast. But they never gonna go into the history of it. It's sort of ambiguous where it came from or what it can do, or what's inside this kind of resin cast of a hand. And there is a lot of mystery to it. But the biggest Elm Street comparison I can give it, and the biggest flattery I can give it, is what you said. Mia and also her friends. They are high school characters, but they feel like genuine people that you would have hung out with and that you would want to hang out with. And there are frequent times during this movie that when the supernatural elements, kind of clawed their way into the lives of these kids, I was like, can we just not? Because I really want to find out, how Mia and her best friend Jade are going to get over this conflict they have. And Jade's got this, boyfriend that they've been together, but he's, a big kind of Christian, so he doesn't want to, he's kind of abstinent, and her friends are making fun of her for that. And there's a real cool dynamic there that you don't get to see a lot. Everything works in this movie, and it works outside the confines of being a horror film. It's a great
Mm-hmm.
teen drama, and
Mm-hmm.
that's very rare in this genre, I think.
I think it's interesting that we have very different comparisons regarding the hand. Like you compared the hand to the writing on a cast. See, I compare the writing on the hand to like some seedy bathroom where it has like which I always love it when you go to some bathroom in some like gross uh gross bar or someplace, and it's like it always, one of the stalls that always has like all this writing, because I always make fun like, who carries their sharpies with them, and especially different colors, and they're like, and this is my bathroom sharpie, so I'm going to make sure I write all this stuff, because that's kind of what I saw. Like when I thought of the hand after you said it with the cast, I'm like, yeah, no, I feel like it's more of like the sharpie in the bathroom. Yeah, but it's too, I love that they don't over explain. They give a couple things like, oh, it's, it was this what is it,
Medium, I think, right?
yes, it was a medium that did this, like, no, it was somebody else, but it's like they don't have a definite answer, and it's like you don't want one. That's one of the things I love about horror, is when you don't know it. We don't need to know. It's like, don't give us all the information, because it just always like, oh, where did this come from? Oh, the mystery, ooh, the macabre and stuff. And that's what I think again they just do so well. But yeah, like you said, these are people that I'd want to hang, or these are kids that just seem like actual kids in high school. Like they give each other crap. Some are popular, some are not, some are ostracized. Even it just they're just dumb kids, but not overly dumb and insensitive, especially with Mia's fact that her mom had died. Because I feel like there are a few films this year where it's like, okay, look, kids aren't that dumb. I mean, I know it's been 2 years since her mom died, and they're like, oh, she just bums me out and stuff like that. I'd rather have that than someone coming back to school after a month and like, oh, aren't you over that already that your mom has passed? Like, you should move on. Like, I'm sorry, this is horrible writing. Like, what? But Talk to Me doesn't do that. And I think that's because of the writers.
Yeah, very much so. It's a very smart film, and it's a very, I think emotionally honest movie because Riley, who we mentioned, he's a couple years younger. Like I would say he's probably a freshman in high school, where Mia and Jade might be juniors or even seniors. And he and his other friend, they kind of get to go along to this party, where the whole point of the party is to record people on their, with their phones being kind of possessed by these entities, and then you upload it online, it becomes this kind of viral sensation. It's almost like shades of The Ring, because I remember in the first movie anyway, there was I think videotape or social media or something, whatever they had back in 2002. Maybe it was just
Videotape.
phone.
Yeah, video.
Yeah. Or I think maybe it was just like a flashback to a party or something. I don't even know if it was recorded, but people like getting together, watching the videotape together, and then they all died or whatever. But it's very reminiscent of that. In this case, the first time we see it, it's very subtle. It's, hey, there's this party with this hand, and they're watching video footage of someone who is like acting very strange. There's a bunch of these other kids around them, like pointing and laughing and screaming and having a great time. But the person who's the center of the attention, they look kind of wrong. And if you catch it, and you've seen this twice, so maybe you definitely have seen it, but you can see that their eyes, like their pupils are wide, they're almost black, and you're like, what are they doing? And even Jade was like, she doesn't quite believe it because it's an internet thing. She's like, "Oh yeah, they have this hand and it possesses people and ha ha ha." But until she's in the room and she sees it happen to Mia, even then she's like, "What's going on? This is my friend. I don't she's not the type of person to play into this." And she genuinely seems freaked out. But then later, as the other kids start trying this out, there's a great montage of them all going like the possession merry-go-round. It's almost like taking hits of a special kind of drug and filming it. But Riley is deemed to be too young to do it. And his older sister doesn't want him, experimenting with this stuff. But, she leaves. I think there's an argument or something, and she storms out. And the other kids are like, hey, now's your chance. Your sister doesn't want you to do it, but what if we only kept you under for 50 seconds instead of
Uh,
90? And he's like, sure, I want to do it. And then horrible things happen. And going back to the practical effects, what happens to Riley? He gets a traumatic head injury on top of a traumatic head injury on top of all this other stuff. When we see him every scene afterwards in this film, this beautiful young actor named Joe Bird, he's horribly disfigured with practical makeup to the point where you forget what he even looked like to begin with.
yeah.
You see a brief flash of him at the end of the film, but it's like almost like, oh, that's right, that's that kid. Wow. It's heartbreaking. And I think the degrees to which, family, which is kind of an overused term, especially in some of our blockbusters now, and friendship really come into play here. It's a heartfelt movie, and these demons that are messing around with people, you realize just how devious and unrelenting they are, and what they're, in their taste, going from this dark afterlife, just trying to get a taste of being around people again, what they'll do to get it. It's horrifying.
Yeah, and what you said about family, that was one of the things that I thought was done again so well. The relationship between Riley and Jade, I thought was very natural and very realistic. Like this, she's a young woman, she's getting older, she has a boyfriend and stuff. And Riley, wants to hang out, he loves his sister. Gets scared a couple times, but he's still, a little kid. And she's like, yeah, I'm really over this. I mean, she forgets to pick him up. So Riley has to call Mia. I mean, I honestly feel like Riley feels like Mia is more of his big sister than Jade is. And but one of my favorite parts of the film, the goddess in this movie, Miranda Otto. She
Mm.
is amazing, especially as like, I know exactly what you're doing. Keep your dick away from my daughter's vagina. It's like she has no filter. She's like, I don't care if you like me. I'm the mom. I'm gonna make sure that you don't get hurt. And this is, I mean, she just is amazing. I love that, of everyone, these like newcomers with faces I don't know, to see her in there, I was like, oh damn, yeah, okay. And then her performance, which to me, honestly, she's just always flawless. Like, I think she's just incredible. She's just one of my favorite parts of the film. Like, when everything goes down, before everything gets crazy, the way she like considers me a family, and then when stuff happens, it's like whoosh, that's a quick 180, but then getting right back in the morose she has. She's just amazing. And again, it's that acting that is just so natural. Everyone just seems effortless. Maybe not everyone. The actor that plays Riley's friend, I gotta tell he's acting. It definitely, he's like memorizing those lines. But everybody else, honestly, chef's kiss, they do just an amazing job.
Well, 1 out of 9 ain't bad,
Yeah,
whatever the cast number is. But
exactly.
but going back to Miranda Otto, I mean, there is a scene later in the film where I think it's Jade gets in the car with her mother, once Riley's in the hospital, and Miranda Otto's character is just like sitting there, like smoking and shaking, and you really get the sense that this isn't just like a horror movie parent. You can just see it in her face and in her mannerisms, like the whole story. Like, I work nights. I got a call at my job that my son is in the hospital. I don't know if insurance is going to pay for this. I don't know if he's going to be a vegetable for the rest of his life. I don't know what my daughter's doing or what her friends are mixed up in. What the hell am I going to do? And again, I would watch an entire movie about a mom, like a single mom, trying to figure all this mess out. But
Yes.
it's several different possible movies, all of which I'd watch. And the one that we're quote unquote saddled with, the horror movie, is fantastic as well.
Yeah. And then you have Mia's family, and she's very estranged from her dad. I mean, he barely speaks in the first, I think I would say hour of the film. He's
Right.
like Mia, and then she kind of tunes him out. So then the audience is tuned out, and then she's like, wait, what? And then he kind of says something. And then the only thing with him, and this is a spoiler moment, when this huge climax or this not I mean this traumatic scene happens that he's involved in, um when Jade finds him and he's still alive, and
Yeah.
then you see her like going back to the hospital. I'm like, so wait, did you not stick around? Did you just like let the police like find him? Like, hey, doors open, I gotta go. Bye. I mean, I don't want to spoil it for everyone. I can if you want, but I just thought that was one of the one that honestly I think that maybe was the only flaw that I had, because I was like, something that, wait, how did that happen? I don't
Well,
think the cops got there. I think she just was like, I'm leaving the door open. Keep this by your neck. I'll see you later. Bye. Good luck.
that yes, I mean that's a bit weird, but let's go back to the incident. I mean, we can talk spoilers because I'll
Okay.
tag it and everything, but when Mia, and I would say this is the one kind of trope that I've seen in other horror movies. I'm like, it's pulled off really well here, but there's a moment where like, oh God, where, there's a struggle between Mia and her ghost mother. And you see her reaching for, I think, a pair of scissors or something. And, she's going to try and stab her mom in the neck. But right as her dad runs into the room, is like, okay, this is the part where the dad gets stabbed in the neck instead of the ghost and all this other stuff. I saw that coming. I'm 3 miles away. But my whole problem is that was a fatal neck wound.
Yeah.
And there was at least a few hours that had passed between that and Jade coming back to the house, because you realize, like, Jade was at the hospital and Mia was hanging out in the car like in the morning calling her to go to the house. So I'm sorry, this does not cut it when you've been horribly stabbed in the neck
I
with a
mean,
pair of long scissors.
my medical degree from watching Grey's Anatomy and different medical dramas, I would say that yes, that did definitely look like a fatal neck wound. I'm not sure if she necessarily got the jugular. It definitely was close. I feel like it went into the airway because he couldn't speak. But I mean, it's like it went in there. But you know what? And the human body is a wonder. Something that I've noticed from watching Yellowstone and a number of other films and TV shows.
You are
I
highly
oh,
credentialed here. I love it.
I mean, some of my friends do call me Dr. Glidewell, so I've got that going on. Uh, and yeah, I always say, like, when I try and break down someone's psychosis, like, from the C- that I got in Psych 1 in college, I'm going to diagnose this person with blah blah blah. But yes, I mean, you go with the timing. When Mia calls Jade, she says it's going to take her what, like 10 minutes to get there from the hospital. So take that 10 minutes. She's pissed off that she's waiting outside. So you add 5 more minutes to get inside. She sees dad. You have that going on. So there's a good hour that he's just yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was surprised that he was alive, but the fact that he was alive then just made me like, so you just left him there because obviously you got back in your car right away. And maybe, you know what? Maybe she got her degree from Grey's Anatomy too and figured like, you know what? You're sorry, I definitely know you're gonna die within the next few minutes. It was nice seeing you. I wish you luck. Bye. But yeah, that was, I feel like, the one flaw. I think it would have been better if he had just died. If he had just been dead, just like
Now
blood everywhere and all that
let
stuff.
me
But maybe, hey, there's someone on the budget. Maybe they couldn't afford all the blood. So it's like, you know what? We'll do this. You're not dead. Hand right here. Still some blood. And there you go.
what yes, but let me ask you this question, and maybe this is something that I or we could have asked the directors at the screening, but I didn't think about it because I was still like on a high from the movie. The flaws didn't really sink in
Right?
until later, right?
Right?
This isn't even I'll think of all the flaws on the way out to the parking lot. This is like the flaws will come to me over the course of the next week when I'm thinking of all the stuff that worked. But why do you think the dad was left alive? I mean, that's a deliberate decision instead of just because there's the perfect out. Because when Jade walks into the room, she has this expression of horror. They could have just cut from that to her like racing back to the hospital because she realized what was going on or something, but they deliberately show the dad still, alive. Why would you estimate, if you can get into the filmmakers' heads, they allowed that to happen?
Possibly for a sequel or something. I don't know. But again, I think maybe if they couldn't afford the blood, keep him alive so that they don't have to do that, or like make him ash, make his skin tone look like he's dead and like blood's been coming out and stuff like that. It's like, no, he's still alive. He's fine. We just
Well,
like put him on the ground.
well, that's the thing. Like it costs no money, no money to just show a body lying face down on the floor. Like you can even have just like his legs sticking out from behind the bed or something like that. And she's like, "Oh my God, I can see that he's clearly dead," and the audience knows he's dead because no one's going to survive what we saw him go through. But to that, the the very end of the film. Did you ever see the movie The Rapture? with Mimi
Yes.
Rogers.
Yeah.
That is, I think, my favorite depiction of what hell is like out of any movie I've ever seen. Because at the end of that film, and there's some parallels between Mimi Rogers' character in that movie and Mia in this movie, both characters who think they're doing the right thing, even though they know there's some danger involved in it, and they end up paying some, eternally damning consequences. But at the end of the rapture, she is in hell, but the version of hell is just her standing in complete darkness, but she can see, we can't see what she sees, but there's like a golden light, almost like the Pulp Fiction briefcase just off screen, kind of illuminating her from afar. And you're like, oh, so forever she's going to stand there in this black void and she can just see the paradise that she gave up, in the distance, but she'll never be able to attain it. And she has to just stay there. Mia goes through a kind of a similar thing at the end of this movie in the hospital, where the lights start going out in the quarters and then she's in complete darkness. Then you see the little candlelight at the end of the void and you're like, oh, now she's one of the talk to me ghosts. I think you kind of see it coming, but when it's in its full impact and you realize that those other ghosts that are all big and scary that we'd seen earlier in the film, maybe they have similarly tragic stories and they're not necessarily evil creatures. It just makes it all the more sad and scary.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that about the rap, because I always thought that Mimi Rogers was in purgatory, that she wasn't necessarily in heaven or hell, because she didn't want, it's like if she had just forgiven God or asked God's forgiveness, but she wouldn't do that because she couldn't believe that any God will allow her to actually kill her daughter, was, so she'd rather just be in purgatory in between rather than be with her husband and her daughter. But and I never thought that she was actually in hell in the rapture. So that's very, I never thought of it like that. So thank you.
Well, I think, well, you're welcome. But no,
Yeah.
I think, because my understanding of purgatory, and I think, didn't the Pope like get rid of the idea of limbo or purgatory like 20 years ago? It's so weird. But the I think the idea of purgatory is that there is sort of a limbo, an in-between state, but there is a chance for those spirits to either go in one direction or the other. I think the idea, because the rapture is literally the end of days, that's when everyone is going to be judged. And I think the last line of the movie is her daughter kind of like asking her, like, do you know how long you're going to be here, mommy, or something? And she says forever. And then it kind of
Yeah.
like fades out. The reason I say that's one of my favorite depictions of hell is that it's kind of like the impossible thing to imagine. Like, what was the universe like before, before there was anything? You can't imagine the concept of nothingness, really, because even that is something. The idea of hell being the complete absence of God, it doesn't have to be burning in a lake of fire. It just has to be the concept of like, I'm going to be in this one spot forever and there's no reprieve. Like, oh my God,
Oh yeah.
I'm going to church every Sunday.
Well,
But
and in the film, like Mia says that she had a dream where she's like in front of a mirror and it's just blank and she can't see anything, and then she wakes up. And that definitely is like, oh, foreshadowing. What is this going to happen? Yeah, it definitely does. And it does. And then when, seeing, it's like her dad turns his back on her. This old man that was in the hospital, you had seen him earlier in different scenes hooked up. His wife was there. Now he's kind of like sitting up because I feel like he's one of the spirits too. And yeah, it's just, but at that point, especially at that point, and big spoiler, you aren't necessarily sure what happened to Mia, even though it's pretty obvious what happened to Mia. And I think that was done in such a great way. I mean, everything with the highway, just her pushing him up. I mean, it's a good thing that Jade got there in time to see everything, because again, that was very convenient with the timing of that. Uh, that's because she was like, "See ya, Mia's dad. I gotta go. Uh, no waiting for you. You're a goner." Uh, but yeah, I just feel like they did set. It's one of those things like I know that they were trying to do like, oh, Mia's going to do this. But I think as horror aficionados and stuff like that, what she was actually going to do. And even though I like saw that coming, I still thought it was brilliant. I mean, the execution was amazing. And I think all of the scares were very effective. Like it wasn't necessarily jump scary. They did like these very, very like well done, creepy, um, just I don't know. I mean, I praise this film so much. I just think it's like the absolute best horror film of the year. And I just want everyone to see it and give these guys, the kudos that they deserve. And I'm glad, I know they had said it was coming out the 21st. So I'm glad it's not. I'm glad they get their own, weekend debut on the 28th because honestly, they deserve it. It's a great film that I think everyone really needs to see, especially people who like horror. I think they're really going to enjoy this.
It's funny because one of the things they had talked about was, and you had mentioned, all the kind of horror icons, past and present, who have been singing their praises. Like Guillermo del Toro tweeted them out, when he saw the trailer. Jordan Peele, I guess, called them, and they had dinner with Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
Now, because the Evil Dead sequel, remake, whatever came out earlier this year, I had forgotten about that. And, I was not a fan of that movie at all. I think part of it is what we were talking about earlier. There are people who watch horror movies and absorb them on a deeper level. And there's other people who watch horror movies like, I want to make horror movies. I'm going to make everything exactly that I've seen. And now it's going to be all like CGI and, no characters and all this other stuff. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that meeting or that dinner and see if they talked about the Evil Dead remake. Because I think there's no greater contrast of how to do a really scary possession film about ordinary people than the Evil Dead 2023 and Talk to Me.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I mean, I personally liked Evil Dead 2023. I do think that even though it was also made in Australia, I believe Talk to Me definitely has those accents that I think when it when it whatever it comes on, Hulu, Shutter, whatever, definitely gonna want to read those subtitles because there were a few times that I'm like, okay, I really can't understand what you're saying, and I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I'm gonna get the gist. It's like it's no worries. I'll figure it out. With the Australian version, they definitely, I mean, the gore was much more like in your face, overly done. I don't want to say overly done, but it's like just a spray of blood and everything. This one did not have that. It definitely, uh, it was just more subtle. I don't want to say classy, but it was like more subtle and elegant in the way that the scares were smart and effective. And it's a lot. I felt like a lot of that is with the reaction of the other actors,
Yeah.
especially during the scene with Riley. I mean, to see everyone else's faces when that was going on, and seeing them freak out. As you had mentioned, when Mia first got possessed, and that's the only time you really see the CGI is with the eyes. I felt like seeing Jade's face during that. I mean, everyone else like phone, phone, phone. It's like laugh, 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 and she's like, what is no? What is going on? Like this isn't seriously. Stop it. What's happening? And it's like, no, girl, this is your friend. Like this is not your friend anymore. This is whatever's inside her. That was one of the things that I felt like with this film. In the other one, I mean, it was definitely like, I mean, Evil Dead Rise had an entire like mixture of three people get like pulverized in a wood chipper and just like spraying blood all over you. Like it was gore from the ceiling to the floor. Like it was all over the place. But Talk to Me had amazing special effects that didn't have to be like that, like over the top. It was just so well done in just a scene that it's like, damn, this is great. And that's when it's like, I mean, the first time I watched that, like I said, I was blown away by those practical effects. And the second time, I'm like trying to look at a more like that kind of Event Horizon scene, you know, sort of thing that was very what else? Shaun of the Dead, like kind of ribbon. I was like really trying to focus in on the different people's bodies and like what that was going on with that. And again, Mia's reaction to that, like a lot of that is like you don't get to see exactly what's going on, but you see her face and the terror and the disgust and that again, an amazing performance. Like I'm really looking forward to seeing what Sophie Wilde and is it Joe Bird? Is that what his name
Mm-hmm.
is?
Yeah.
Yes. What they are going to do next with their careers because this is going, I feel like this film honestly will just is going to catapult them into a whole new I don't know, this is going to catapult their careers into something that they probably wouldn't expect, but they deserve it.
I hope so, but it's a double-edged sword, right? Because we've seen this before, young indie darlings, now they're in Marvel movies, you know. I don't necessarily want to see that because
Money.
it's that naturalism, it's that indie spirit and pluck that really makes you fall in love with them. And then to see them kind of productized, it can be heartbreaking. So yeah, I would like to see them in more A24 films and movies of that ilk. It's interesting you say that the Event Horizon scene, as we call it, because in that movie we get a glimpse into the hell dimension of eternal torment, and that is it's a lot more quick cuts. It's like 98 cuts or something in 3 seconds or something. So
Uh-huh.
you really have to pause the Blu-ray in order to see what's going on, but you get an idea. It's graphic, it's gory, it's horrific. In this, it's you get the idea that horrible things are going on, but it's not over the top. It's much more akin to the dream sequence in Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, where Freddy Krueger's mom, the nun, is locked in the asylum over Christmas with the 100 maniacs, and you kind of get the idea. It's more the idea, once again, of being trapped here for eternity with these leering beings, even if they're not ripping you apart, just these dirty, scuzzy demon kind of people, just like constantly pawing at you. It's horrific. I will say, I wasn't this movie didn't scare me. I think it was sufficiently weird and disturbing, which is sometimes even better than being like scared. Like kind of freaked me out on a more subtle level. But I will say, be careful out there, folks, if you're going to see this in a theater. I don't know if it was the music box crowd that brought out or because the directors were there. I was sitting behind or in front of the most obnoxious film goers I have ever had the displeasure of watching a movie with. They ruined the big moment for me that freaked me out. There's a bit where Riley's in the hospital. Mia goes in with the hand because she's going to see if she can somehow contact another spirit through the hand to find out where Riley is to make contact. Because he, since he's comatose, cannot say any of the words that kind of open up this gate and might allow him to, the real him to come out. So Mia finds the creepy little horror movie girl who is a trope in and of herself, but she works really
Yes.
well here because she's not like scary looking. She's just kind of like sad and mysterious with the dark eyes, and she kind of whispers. And it was such a surprise. I did not see this coming. Maybe you saw it coming the first time you saw it, but I certainly did not,
No, I
because
did. Yeah.
you don't realize the door kind of swings both ways, because you know that you have to say talk to me in order to see the ghost that you're going to be paired with, and then you say I let you in. But Mia says, I'm looking for the boy named Riley. Do you know where he is? And the little girl says, I could take you to him. And then Mia's like, really? And then the little girl says, I let you in. And then like immediately you swirl into that hell dimension. And I was like, I got chills. I got goosebumps just recounting that scene just now. But it was ruined because the person behind me at full volume, maybe you heard this, said, oh shit. Like this was the first time he'd ever seen a horror movie or been surprised by anything. I was like, buddy, get a hold of yourself. I'm about to leap over the seat. because it was terrible. It was a great, beautiful, magical moment of surprise, which you don't get a lot in movies. You don't get in horror movies a lot anymore. And it was undercut by this banana head behind me. I don't know what's going on.
You know what? What really saddens me is that I want Music Box is my favorite theater in definitely North America, probably the world. Uh when COVID hit and they reopened in August of 2020, maybe July, August 2020. I know all of the stipulations they had, all of the, safety measures they have to make sure they would be safe, we would be safe, and just make people like want to come back to the movies. But they also had a big thing. It's like, you need to be quiet. You are actually the second person that has told me something like this since Sunday, that someone that we both know saw Babylon. I was at Babylon on Sunday for the 70 millimeter. And while they were watching Babylon, they had these jackos who were like drinking their beers and like laughing it up. Like it's their freaking living room. And that's a 3-hour movie that, believe me, I will die on that hill. I think it's an amazing film, but I have to fight for that because, it takes some convincing. And it's horrible when the person was like, yeah, I liked it the first time. I can't say that I liked it the second time, but I mean, I think it's a lot to do with these jerkos that were like laughing it up and ruining the film for me. And that needs to stop. Like, I love going, like, I am not a religious person, but film going is my church. Like, that is the pulpit. This is the sermon I am watching. Shut up. Just shut up. This isn't stand up. This isn't like, we're not at, Zanies, waiting for you to like make something and all that stuff. This isn't a film that, yeah, it came out in December. Oh, well, I can talk through it because everyone's like, no, even if I've seen it how many times, I don't want you talking through it. I don't care. Shut up. Just shut up. That's one of the reasons why I sit in front, because when he told me what happened, I heard the shushing that he was doing to these people, but I didn't hear them because I
Wow.
was like 3 rows in front of them. It's like, yeah, because I have like, theater rage. It's like, there's road rage and then there's theater rage. I have theater rage. I will probably cut someone if they make me mad during film. I won't. I'm sorry. And hopefully that's not going to be used against me in a court of law if that ever comes out later or something happens. But yeah, just shut up.
Yeah, I mean they'd been obnoxious, I think, before that. They're kind of like whispering and talking and laughing to each other. But that reaction, I think it was more disturbing to me because it didn't feel theatrical. It felt
Yeah.
genuine. But I'm like, how is this scene, as great as it is, eliciting that reaction? But yeah, I kind of wanted to like pull over and interview them. Like, hey, have you been to the theater before? But yeah, but still, it's a great moment. Again, I love being surprised in movies, and this was. I mean, I know we're talking spoilers, and hopefully you haven't gotten this far if you have not watched Talk to Me. But if you have watched it and you've gotten this far, you know what I'm talking about. You know how awesome that scene is. So, Katie, do you have any? I guess, is there anything you want to cover that we haven't talked about, or any kind of closing thoughts on Talk to Me?
Oh, the music. I thought the music was fantastic by Cornell Wilczek. Uh, there's a great Sia song in the beginning that I think just I love that they use that song and that Mia and Riley are singing to it. It's bonding. It's a familiar song. It just gets you in that spirit. It's like, okay, we could be friends. I could be them. I have been them and stuff. But then the score and the rest of the music that they add in just goes so well. Like, especially when they have kind of like the montage of people getting possessed and stuff, and they have that song going on and stuff like that. Brilliant, brilliant editing. But yeah, I thought the music was fantastic. And that was something that I definitely wanted to talk about. Oh, and I also feel like, I know I talked about how, the wardrobe was just effortless. And besides everyone like on their phones, like it's very much, I don't feel like this is going to be like, oh, that's such a 2023 film. I feel like this is going to stand the test of time. Like, with different films, like people, I mean, look at Scream. No one uses a landline anymore. No one knows what a VCR is anymore. No one knows like what a what do you mean you recorded it on what? Like what? I don't understand. It's like I mean they're different things, but it stands the test of time. I do feel like Talk to Me is going to stand a test of time and not just be like a time capsule sort of film. And I think A24 did a great job with it. And I really like the fact that with, as you had mentioned, the strike happened, like the SAG strike. That was the first day of the SAG strike. But I like that the Philippou brothers had really great things to say about A24. Like with all
Yeah.
the stuff with studios and stuff like that, it's nice to hear filmmakers actually say, like, they didn't ask us to cut anything. They didn't ask us to change this and this. It's like, and we've heard, and they had heard that from different filmmakers. That to me, especially that night with everything going on, was such an inspiration that it's like, look, people have issues with A24 and stuff like that. One, I've had issues with A24, honestly, just with the trailers. I think with a lot of the trailers, if they had stopped making the trailer look like a completely different movie than what the movie was, people would not be so pissed at them. But with the filmmakers coming forward and saying like how much they, appreciate that the way they've been treated by the studio, it it gives me hope that everything that's going on in Hollywood right now, that hopefully that can be resolved and work together. Like people just need to have a living wage. It's not that people necessarily want to be rich. I mean, come on, we want to be rich, but you just want to eat. You don't want to have five jobs while someone is like, making $1 billion off of everything you've done. And hopefully with that honestly, it just really inspired me from what they said during the Q&A, which I live streamed it, so you can watch that on the Blonde in Front on Facebook.
Nice. Well, we'll get to that in a second because I do want you to be able to share out all your information and socials and where people can find you. But no, I mean, it's a great point. I mean, as far as the SAG after strike and the WGA strike, I mean, yeah, these are kind of dark times, but they're not unprecedented because in any leap forward in technology and the way creativity is put out into the world in a mass way, there has to be a point where everybody pulls over and says, okay, how do we navigate this? How do we give people what is, rightfully theirs, the creators versus the studios and all this other stuff, like the streaming rights and AI and all that business. It will be worked out. I don't know what the landscape's going to look like, afterwards, but it does have to be sorted out. And unfortunately, these both, entities, both parties, or all three parties, can't seem to work these things out while everything is running, on the treadmill. They have to stop the treadmill for a while before they can get back on it. Terrible metaphor, but that's a long way of saying I agree with you. I think A24, the way the Philippou brothers talked about it, is sort of the model that once all this smoke clears, the big studios would do well to learn from. I'm assuming, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that everything they said about A24 and the way they work with their artists is true in terms of creative freedom, in terms of promoting the movie, not, wanting to cut anything, really standing behind it. And most key, and as you mentioned, this movie was made and then bought by A24, but they didn't spend $100 million on this movie. I mean, you look at what Blumhouse does, they spent however many, just a pittance to make that Insidious sequel that, beat Indiana Jones in week 2. You can do it. You can make these great, memorable classics in the making with a great return without having to spend all this money and get caught up in the nonsense. So yeah, I'm hopeful as well. I also did like, and I could totally see it in the film. It didn't take me out of it, but once the Philippous addressed it in the Q&A. I was like, that's totally right. They said that while they were editing, they mentioned that I think their editor had said, "Oh yeah, that's a very A24 cut that we did. You know, a specific kind of scare or horror beat that you can see as a through line, like in Ari Aster movies." They mentioned that they met and talked with Ari Aster, which makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense. I think he was the one who told them that, you know, they'd be in good hands with A24.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it was. Yeah. I'm looking through. This is a film that will last, and talking about the stereotypes. No, yeah, I think everything, I covered everything that I needed to cover. Thank you for bringing up the scene, because I was talking about the Event Horizon scene, but I forget the segue into that. And you're right, that was just very well done. But even it is very stereotypical in horror films, but it's like you need that like child guide, because it's like there's at least some innocence around there. You have the demons, you also have these other people in purgatory that I think will be like that. Mia is going to be like, she I don't think she's necessarily a guide, but she's definitely, this is like her purgatory hell. She's not able to get out of wherever it is that she is, and now she's just going to have to be like a party trick.
I like that. But no, I mean, but even like the little girl, like I don't think, my interpretation of her is that she was not an innocent. And that was one
Oh,
of the first, not maybe the first clue, but one of the big signifiers that these forces will do anything to get what they want from the living. She's a little girl, you know, she's Mia kind of like opens up to her like, I'm looking for my friend named Riley. Can you take me to, can you help me? And she's like, I can take you
mhm.
to him. And then she turns on her like that was my indication, like, oh no, this is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And then
That's true.
especially later on when you see like Mia's mother, you really start to get the feeling that that's not her mom.
Yeah.
We don't, maybe because you've seen this twice already, maybe you've got some insight here. There's a big mystery surrounding her death. Was that all part of Mia's imagination, like because it almost implied that the dad did something or didn't do something, like maybe he could have saved her mother. I was kind of confused by that. I feel like it was almost a dangling thread.
I did not get that. I got that I know in the film that, and this is one of the things too, and I think it's the brilliant delivery that she does. She took too many sleeping pills accidentally and stuff like that. So it's like, that's okay, that's usually a suicide, but all right. It's like, and then when you get in her mind of what her mom is like, coming through, I didn't want to leave you, all that stuff. And that's one of the things I think why when it took over Riley, that they knew, because Mia had, it's like, I feel like it's one of those things like once one of these beings gets inside you, they know you, all of the rest of them know you, so they're going to try and do whatever they can to stay there. But yeah, I mean, the fact that her dad had such a strained relationship with her, and that, look, I should have told you this, I should have told you this like after it happened, but that her mom actually did commit suicide. Like it wasn't an accident, she locked the door. They were obviously had a strained relationship, but Mia at that point had been so like, I mean, she was in, she wanted to do anything she could to like keep her mom there with this, spirit world, that she wasn't listening and she wasn't trying to be rational at all. And even though, and it's also, after 2 years, it's one of those things in the film, like, it's like, is now really the right time for you to be saying this? It's like, that's kind of convenient since you don't know what's going on. And obviously you guys haven't talked, but it's like, hey, I want to share this with you. But I think because he didn't have the note, he said that she left a note, but I don't think that he didn't show her the note, right? Or was he
I
reading the note? I forget.
I yeah, he mentioned, I don't know if we saw it. The detail that sticks out is that um she had, the mom, even though she was locked in the room, she was like clawing at the door, or there was like bloody fingerprints or something, like almost like she had either taken the pills and then realized that, she had done something
It
wrong.
was
So
a
she was
mistake.
trying to get out. and then the dad, like you see a flashback of like the door opening and he's like holding the mom, is just all very strange, as if to say he had concocted the story about the sleeping pills to cover up the fact that he had done something to her. But it's not really ever resolved. And he keeps saying, like, I shouldn't have kept this from you, or I've got something to tell you, or we need to have a conversation that I don't really think ever happened. So I need to watch this movie again, and I will, and I'll be definitely keying in to see if I can figure that out. But maybe it's just a matter of like this, Mia's never gonna know, so the audience is never gonna know, and that's okay.
Well, and even like because I recall him going over the letter that she wrote and how she was sorry and she didn't mean to. And this is like, no, no. And it's like, but at that point, it you couldn't convince Mia. Like she was already like so deep, and it's like with seeing her mom and her mom coming through Riley and trying to, it's like, I want you to come here. Like it's like kill him, like let's do this, all that stuff. It didn't matter what you said. It didn't matter if it was like written, like if it was typed up, if it was in stone. At that point, she's like, nope, that's not what happened. Like she told me through this 13-year-old boy, I like really what happened. So I'm gonna go with that. It's like I'd go with the thing in stone. Nope, nope, that's not what's gonna happen. Like she was like she had like tunnel vision of what happened to her mom, because and but that again, I felt like it's that beginning. It's like, yeah, she her dad was sleeping on the couch, they had gotten into a fight, she had had depression, she was in her room, she locked the door, and she accidentally took too many pills. I'm like, yeah, I those that's I mean, you kind of checked all the boxes for suicide there, sweetie. But I mean, if you whatever lets you sleep at night and be whole, I can't. Again, my C that I got in Psych 1, I can't really my doctor degree and stuff like that. So
Well, Dr. Glidewell, I definitely appreciate you spending some time talking through this movie with me. I definitely feel like I've spent some time on the psychiatrist couch diving into this beautiful, deep, horror movie, surprisingly deep horror movie that everyone should go see. Where can people see you? Tell us more about The Blonde in Front.
well, I have a horocratic oath that I will tell you that you can find me on. I just made that up, by the way.
I love
You
it.
can find Blonde in Front, with blonde with an E at the end. Blonde in Front on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. I have a website, blog that kind of has been infiltrated by different people. So I try not to do too much on that because I don't necessarily where it's going. But I also do reviews on Radio of Horror and Postmortem Radio.
Excellent. Well, I
And
will.
if you see
Hmm?
me at the movies, especially at press screenings, I am the blonde in front. And if you've been there once or twice, you know that I'm right in front of everybody.
And I wanted to sit with you at the screening, but I can't do the front. There's
Yeah.
something like I however, whatever your secret is, you're gonna have to tell me someday, because I'm like more. I'm the guy in the middle back. But no, so I will try and link to as many of those things as possible down in the description. Folks, definitely check out Katie's stuff. Thank you for coming and hanging out. I hope this is not the last conversation that we have about movies, and specifically horror movies. It's been a lot of fun.
I agree. This was a blast. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're welcome. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, this has been our Talk to Me conversation. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Katie, and take care.